Hi everyone, Shanna with Apogee the Moon, and I am bringing you a forecast for the week of Sunday, January 30th through Saturday, February 5th. And so this is going to be a really interesting week. It's going to be, So just a couple of announcements before I get started though into the craziness that's going to be this week, because it's going to be a wild week. A lot of good things, but a lot of really intense things that are coming to a head that we've been dealing with since the beginning of 2021. So I do want to say that as of February 11th, I will be shutting down my readings until after the 22nd, because, excitingly enough, the astrologer that I work for, that I'm a TA for, we are opening up the academy to bring on more students, another round of students, and so we are going to be very busy doing that. And I just won't have time to do readings between the 11th and the 22nd. I will reopen my books after that. So if you do visit my website and want a reading, it's going to have to be before February 11th or after February 22nd. So thank you so much for your continued support, and I really appreciate it. So now that announcement is out of the way. And if you're interested in learning astrology, go to astrologywithheather.com and sign up on her waitlist to be notified once enrollment opens, because we are going to be doing some really fun stuff over the course of the enrollment. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that too. So there is that. So special announcement out of the way. February 11th through the 22nd, I will be busy with the launch of the Cosmic Academy of Astrology with Astrology with Heather. So now we can get on to the forecast. All right, so this weekend we start off, really the main event that I want to talk about is actually the moon, right? So the new moon that's happening in Aquarius, there's some really intense aspects going on. The ongoing square between Uranus and Saturn, while yes, it is moving on, this is kind of a really big activation of that in a very interesting way, because we have a new moon that is going to be at 12 degrees of Aquarius. Saturn is going to be at 15 degrees of Aquarius, so that is a conjunction of those three planets. And Uranus is in almost an exact square with this. And actually, let me look at the chart. Yeah, it's almost in an exact square because Uranus is at 10 degrees. So the applying aspect would be the conjunction to Saturn, and the separating aspect would be the square to Uranus. So very shocking, very transformative kind of energies via liberation and freedom. And so the themes that we have been facing over the course of 2021, where there's this really exciting new thing going on over here where Uranus is, or there's this really intense pull towards a freedom of some type or liberation of some type in this Taurus area of our charts. Whereas in the Saturn part of our chart, it's a little more limiting, a little more delayed gratification, a little more heavy, if you will. And I say that because Saturn is kind of like what they say the heavy hitter planet, in the sense that Saturn is very restrictive. Saturn is very much like the gravity of a situation. And so, with the sun and the moon coming conjunct Saturn with this new moon, it's going to feel very burdened and pressured and limiting, and people are going to be wanting to crave that outlet of freedom inside that Taurus realm of their life. The rest of the chart for the new moon is actually very beautiful. There's a lot of trines, a lot of sextiles. Uranus is being mitigated in terms of the really disruptive energy that is caused by Uranus a lot of times for people that aren't comfortable with change, with trines from Venus and Mars, right? So we do have that. And I'm thinking now I should have put the chart actually up on the screen to talk about it. But I'm looking at the chart right now. And so, you know, yes, we have, you know, the sun, the moon, and Saturn all together in Aquarius, and we have this square to Uranus over here in Taurus. Sorry. But, you know, there's Uranus has a really nice sextile forming with Jupiter, really nice trines with Venus and Mars. Even Mercury and Pluto, even though Mercury is stationing to go direct. So mercurial things are very heavy. Thinking, speaking, writing, communicating, contracts, agreements, negotiations, things like that. Especially, you know, electronic devices. I don't know if any of you have been having issues with your computers. I have. Even thinking, right? Like my brain, I have not been able to think clearly over the last several weeks with Mercury being retrograde in Aquarius and now in Capricorn. So there's still this kind of like rewiring going on of how we're thinking about things, how we're doing things, how we're interacting with different things. And we're getting very clear with Mercury being in a conjunction with Pluto as well. On what we actually need to revise and where we find ourselves having to kind of slough off a layer or get rid of some dead weight, or, you know, things like that, right? Things that would be associated with like a purge, either mental or physical purge, right? Depending on, you know, how this is hitting your chart. But it's both of those planets, Mercury and Pluto being in a conjunction in Capricorn, is forming a really nice sextile with Neptune. And so Neptune in positive aspect versus hard aspect is, it can be very magical when activated. So this could be seeking out very deep and very profound healing. If that's applicable to you, this could be seeking out, you know, a spiritual teacher that makes no bones about who they are, because they have lived as authentically as they have lived in their life, versus, you know, some of these people that are out there making millions of dollars that are living in ivory towers, and they, you know, need to be knocked down a few pegs because they're not practicing what they preach. Whereas this would be finding a teacher that practices what they preach and lives what they speak of. So there is that as well. And being very clear about things. So there is that. But, you know, the intensity is going to come from the sun, moon, and Saturn still squaring Uranus. And so we're going to feel that square a little bit more because we have so many other positive aspects going on. That's really where the clash is happening with this new moon. So there could be arguments, disputes, highly disruptive conversations going on over the course of this lunation cycle, but it's really for the liberation and the freedom of what you have been feeling stuck and stagnant about in this, you know, Aquarius Taurus area of your life, where however this is hitting you. And so I will go over themes when we get there, you know, so why don't we do that? If I can find my screen again, because I was looking at the chart. There we go. See, Mercury retrograde. This is why I try not to talk during Mercury retrograde, because, oh boy. All right. So for Aries and for Aries rising, this, I'm going to pull the chart up here. This, you know, Sun, Moon, Saturn conjunction is happening in your 11th house. And so this is, maybe there could be a new person coming in or a new friendship coming in that is going to kind of show up very unexpectedly, or even, I mean, this doesn't have to be a friend either. This could be a humanitarian kind of pursuit that you're working on that's going to really dramatically affect your income, your money, your values. You know, but there's been a limiting kind of quality to your friends groups. You've been purging who it is that you associate with, and really just kind of squeezing out the excess of the people in your life in terms of group collaborations, you know, maybe even social media, if that's something that's applicable to you as an Aries ascendant person. So being very clear about what it is that you're doing with your friends groups, with your internet connections, with the people that you associate with by choice, your long range goals and plans as well. Maybe there's something new that comes into your awareness, especially being a new moon, where there is some type of humanitarian pursuit, or there is some type of you know, there could be a person coming in or a friend coming in that has a really shocking kind of development in terms of your values or your finances. And so over the course of this lunation, you know, there can be support from your career to, you know, your money sector, right? As I said, with Venus and Mars in trine with Uranus in your second house, and Jupiter, you know, in your 12th house. This could be money coming from seemingly out of nowhere, really, you know, especially with how it's configured in the chart with the sextiles and all of that to Jupiter. Or this could be maybe you dream of what to do next in terms of, or, you know, meditation, dreaming, things like that. And you understand what you need to do next in order to kind of change and liberate your resources, right? Because this is where the North Node is now. This is where we're going to be having eclipses, is on the 2nd and 8th axis in your chart, specifically if you're an Aries ascendant. And so your finances are going to take, you know, a really big focus for the next 18 months. And this is kind of that point of it, if you will. So that is for Aries and for Aries rising. And for Taurus and for Taurus rising. So this is happening in your 1st and in your 10th house, right? So your 1st and your 10th house, Uranus, you know, maybe you have been being very different. Maybe you are transforming and liberating yourself. Maybe you're going through some type of crazy change in terms of your style, how you dress, how you look, how you're acting out in the world. Even how you see the world around you could be completely changing with Uranus here, really kind of liberating you, liberating your body, liberating yourself, because every part of the chart is seen from the 1st house. And so this is you specifically. So with this new moon happening in your 10th house with Saturn, this could be a new, not necessarily a new beginning, because these are fixed signs. So this could be a continuation of some type of career or a new development, maybe a shocking new development in terms of your career and what you're doing, your public reputation and things like that. Or maybe there's a new idea that you have for a new, you know, what it is that you want to be known for out in the world, or the legacy that you want to leave behind, right? With, especially with Saturn in the 10th house, this is you getting very clear and very diligent about what it is that you want to be doing and the legacy that you want to leave behind. And so with that ongoing square, there could have been a lot of tension building in your body. There could have been a lot of very shocking developments. Maybe you are shocking people with how you're acting. And so it's kind of like there's been this ongoing kind of, what's the word I'm trying, it's like, it's uncomfortable, and it's like you're trying to like, look, I keep shrugging my shoulder, like you're trying to shrug something off, right? Like you're trying to get out from under something that seems to be a little too oppressive, a little too limiting for you, this freedom that you yourself are craving in the world. So that could definitely be something for you going on. For Gemini and Gemini rising, so this new moon is happening in your 9th house. So there could have been you could have been looking at your worldview, how it is that you see the world around you, how it is that you see reality, really, and frame reality, especially with Saturn here. You know, there could definitely be some really kind of heavy kind of melancholy outlook on the reality that you're facing right now. And with this new moon here activating, the shocking kind of things that are going on, there could be a new development in terms of your reality, in terms of how you see reality, in terms of your, your dogmatic belief system. There could be a shift going on there. And with the square to Uranus in your 12th house, this could come through, this could come through, behind the scenes institutions. This could come through hospitals. This could come through, like, if you have something that's being diagnosed or something like that right now, that's been ongoing for this last year. Now maybe here is a way for that institution to get clarity on what it is that's actually going on for you. That could be something too. This could also be a new education that's coming in for you that's going to be very shocking to other people and very different from like a spiritual practice that is, kind of mainstream or anything like that. So maybe there's something that's alternate that's coming into your awareness in terms of your spiritual practice. And so there's kind of this shift of worldview with this new moon conjunct Saturn in square with Uranus in your 12th house of, understanding, understanding spirituality in a different way. Could be it too. So for Cancer and for Cancer rising, this new moon is happening in your 8th house. And so this is a little bit more intense because it is the 8th house, but there could be a new beginning, and really seeing old traumas, right? Because with Saturn here, Saturn does rule your 7th house, but it also rules your 8th house. And so it's in square with Uranus in your 11th house of your social network, your social groups, things like that. There could definitely be some really intense new beginnings in terms of healing that come through kind of out of the box, out of the norm, weird friendships that you develop over the course of, the next month or the next 6 months. If that's applicable for you, if you're able to, seek out new people, seek out new places, new things, things like that. But having this new moon specifically in your 8th house with Saturn, this could definitely have you looking at old wounds, old traumas, old baggage, old psychological issues that you have had in the past and clearing them up, right? And it's going to come through, or it could come through, working with a group of people, working with a friend or a collaboration of some kind. And it's going to be very shocking and very intense, but ultimately liberating and freeing for you. That's what I have for Cancer. And then for Leo and for Leo rising, this new moon is happening in your 7th house of relationships, one-to-one contracts, agreements, partnerships of all kinds, whether or not this is long-term friendships, marriage partners, business partners, clients, contracts, right? If you're signing on the dotted line for something, be aware that what you're signing could very well take a long time or be a long-standing contract for you, but it's not going to be without hurdles. It's not going to be without having to kind of level up and kind of liberating and freeing what you thought your career was going to look like. Maybe you're going one way, and you're for sure thinking that this is going to be one way, and you're thrown a curveball, right? Like there is something very shocking going on here, especially with how close these planets are and this activation. So be aware that there could be curveballs in where you think you're going to where you're actually going. Be adaptable to it, right? That's the only thing that I can say for Leos specifically, because ultimately, if you're a Leo ascendant and your midhaven is in the 10th house where it should be, but depending on how far north or south you're born, but having, the angles hit, it matters. This is where we can be as, because I am also a Leo ascendant, and so all of my points are in the fixed signs. So this can be not wanting to let go of something that seemed stable, that seemed long-lasting, that seemed like it was the best fit for you. But it's time, because things are changing and evolving, and that's the one thing that Uranus definitely brings in terms of the career sector for you, is a liberation and a freedom from a career that you thought was for the long haul, because now there's something that's deeper that's opening for you, especially with the new moon with Saturn. There is a longer lasting agreement or a longer lasting contract that could be put on the table for you, that it won't be without its hurdles, and it's not going to be without hard work, but ultimately the end could be very liberating and very freeing for you, specifically in terms of what it is that you're doing out in the world and what it is that you're known for. So there's that, and I think I've talked that to death now, so we're going to move on to Virgo. So for Virgo and for Virgo rising, this is happening, this new moon is happening in your 6th house of your daily work, your, where you slave away, your health, your wellness, the routines that you have every single day to take care of yourself and to live, right? And it's where kind of you slave away for a pittance, if I can say it that way, because I'm really weird when I talk, and I know that, so I'm sorry. I mix metaphors, and I mix old speech with new speech, and whatever. It just is what it is, guys. So, this happening in your 6th house, this could be, the beginning. This could be the beginning of a new regimen for you, in terms of your work, your wellness, how you're taking care of yourself, and how you're showing up in service to other people. And so there could definitely be something that's limiting, that feels very constrictive. If that's what snakes do, right? Like the boa constrictors, they constrict everything, right? So anyway, there could be some type of constriction or limitation or delay that's going on in terms of your work. If you're changing jobs, or if you're trying to find a job, there could be something like that. There could be limits to your health. Maybe you're not taking care of yourself in the right way that you need to be taking care of yourself. And so now you need to really get very serious about your health and your wellness. And with this square to Uranus that's been ongoing in your 9th house, this is affecting your worldview. This is affecting either people that you associate with at a distance, or this could be affecting how you see reality around you, and kind of liberating an old stuck stagnant paradigm that's no longer serving you in terms of, how you frame reality, how you see reality, how you think about, the world around you and the interactions that you have on a daily basis. This is our, if the 3rd house is our lower mind, is our day-to-day thought processes, the 9th house is like the bigger picture of how we fit into the whole, right? So with Uranus here, this is very liberating, very freeing, very disruptive, especially to what's going on in your mind and how you see the bigger picture, how you see what's going on with the reality around you. So there's definitely some changes there happening, that have been happening and ongoing. So with this new moon happening in square with, Uranus conjunct Saturn, this could definitely be ultimately liberating and freeing your mind to be able to make the changes that you need to make in that 6th house area of your life, where you're showing up in service to other people, what you're doing every single day, and how you're taking care of yourself is up for change. And I mean, Uranus is very much supported, and your relationships are very much supported, in terms of, the Capricorn, the 5th house to the 7th to the 9th, right? You have Venus and Mars in a sextile with Jupiter, and Jupiter in a sextile with Uranus and Venus and Mars all in trine. So this is really supportive energy for you, if you so choose to utilize your relationships to help you, your contracts, your agreements, and your negotiations to help you understand how you need to change this 6th house area of your life. So that is that, and that's I'm beating that to death. So we're gonna go on to Libra. So for Libra and Libra rising, this new moon is happening in your 5th house of fun, play, joy, romance, sex, all the things that you love to do just because you love to do them. And so there could be an idea. There could be something that you enjoy doing as a hobby and you want to take it to that next level. But there's something that's going on in that 8th house that is very disruptive and very shocking. Maybe there's finances, either through partnership, that are changing, like if you're, long-term partnership with a spouse, or, just a long-term relationship where you have joint resources together. Even your clients, if that's a thing, there's something that's changing there in that 8th house in terms of, money coming in from other institutions, debts, things like that. You could be paying off a massive amount of debt because of something that you love to do just because you love to do it. I mean, with Saturn involved in your 5th house, this could be taking a hobby or something that you love to do and bringing it to a next level, and really making really good money through clients with it, right? Like that could be a thing too. And I have a thought for one particular Libra that I spoke to just the other day, and I'm like, oh, that's how that's going to play out. That's really cool. But I digress. So there's definitely some healing that needs to happen, and Uranus in the 8th house, while it might be very shocking, it might be very intense because Uranus is a very liberating and freeing force. It can, if you've put in the work to do the healing, to do the psychological healing and all of that, you can have very powerful, instantaneous kind of healing that happens with Uranus in the 8th house. Because Uranus does rule your 5th house, right? I'm gonna bring in the rulership on this. This could definitely be borrowing money from an institution for something that you love to do, to be able to turn that into a business, right? Or something of that kind, if that makes sense for some of you. But this new moon, particularly in your 5th house, it's a very sobering new moon because it's with Saturn, right? Saturn rules both your 4th and your 5th house. So this could be to do with your parents. Maybe there's a new beginning in your parents' life. Maybe there's a new beginning in, the life of your child. Maybe there's something that is changing that's going to be long lasting for your child. There is that as well. And then, yeah, just general 5th house. I mean, it's a very sobering thing to have Saturn in the 5th house. But it's also it could be taking a hobby and making it into something that will be long lasting. And so you'll reap the benefits of that as Saturn moves probably into your 6th house, of work, right? So you could definitely be, moving towards something that's where it's something that you love to do is now going to move towards work once Saturn moves into your 6th house. So that's what I have for that. We're going to move on. So for Scorpio and for Scorpio rising, this new moon is happening in your 4th house. And so this new moon definitely activating Saturn in your 4th house, and, squaring Uranus in your 7th house. So there could definitely be it may not necessarily be a new beginning because this is a fixed sign, right? So the fixed signs are more about refining what it is that you already have. And so with Saturn here in the 4th house, it kind of exemplifies that a little bit more, of that refinement and having to make sure that the foundation of the home that you're in, or if it's not your physical home, mentally, emotionally, physically, it's the home area, it's the parents, it's your family, it's your property, right? So with this new moon happening here, especially in square with Saturn, if this is something that's been ongoing where you've been looking for land, you've been looking for like the forever home or something like that, with this new moon here, if you've been putting in the work to really understand what you need, want, and desire in terms of what you come home to every single day, and you've been putting in the work with Saturn there, this new moon could reap benefits and rewards, maybe even through the purchase of a property, or, you know, the purchase of a home, something like that. It just depends on what else is going on in your chart, and if this is something that you've been focusing on with Saturn here. You know, it is activating that Uranus Saturn ongoing square. It is dissipating, but it is still, it's really intense right now, right? So just be aware of that. There is support from your neighbors or your neighborhood in terms of, you know, you have Venus and Mars in your third house. You have Pluto and Mercury conjunct in your third house. So, you know, this is a lot of energy in communicating what it is that you desire, especially when it comes to either children, hobbies, things that you love to do just because you love to do them, and your relationships, because you have all these planets in Capricorn, and you have Jupiter and Neptune over in your 5th house in Pisces, and then you have Uranus in your 7th house. All of these planets are making positive aspect to each other, even though we have the intensity of the square of the new moon with Saturn and squaring Uranus, right? So even though we have that intensity, we have this reactivation, this is almost like now the liberation and the freedom that we desire in relationship can be supported and can be had, and there could be even a reward of some kind, especially with that 5th house, Jupiter, in the mix, you know, communicating about something that you love just because you love to do it. And it's going to kind of bring your relationships to a whole different level, and really free up and liberate you from any stuck, stagnant, stale relationships that have been ongoing, right? So there is that, and I'm going to move on because this video is going to be way too long. For Sagittarius and for Sagittarius rising, we have the new moon in the 3rd house. And so this could be a new beginning in terms of writing, speaking, communicating, neighbors, neighborhoods, or a new development within your community that could be very long lasting, especially with this new moon happening in a tight conjunction with Saturn. There could be you have to get serious. Wherever Saturn is, it kind of squeezes any fun, any play, anything out of that area of the chart, and it makes you get serious about it, right? So getting serious about how it is that you're communicating, getting serious about maybe even just something as mundane as the vehicle that you drive, and that maybe you, for some Sagittarius risings, maybe you purchase a vintage vehicle, right? But this is also, you know, squaring your 6th house of with Uranus in your 6th house of what it is that you're doing every single day. So maybe on some weird level, this is kind of shaking up. This purchase of this vehicle or something like that is kind of shaking up what's going on in that 6th house. That's just a silly example, but it's an example. The other way this could play out too is that the people that you the people that you speak to every single day, there could be very shocking developments, and even very disruptive communications with Saturn and the new moon versus the 6th house of, you know, of what you do every single day, who you're speaking to every single day. This could be a new beginning in terms of who you're talking to, how you're talking, how you're communicating, and you could be becoming an authority, right? With your words, with your speech, and being very diligent and very authoritative in how you're speaking about some type of health routine or some type of health regimen or some type of mental health that's going on, right? Like there could be something going on there. And I will leave that as it is. And then we can move on to Capricorn and Capricorn rising. So this new moon is happening in your second house of finances, right? So Saturn has been here, and Saturn is your ruler, right? So not only does it rule you, it rules your second house, or not you, but it rules your chart. And the focus for you, wherever your chart ruler goes, is it kind of takes on those qualities. So what it is that you value, your money, your materials, your possessions, right? Your value system, like what you find value in and who you find value in. This is our core. This is the essence of the core of who we are, in terms of, like, this would be our sacral chakra, right? So the value that we find in ourselves, in other people, in possessions, in things, you know, people, places, and things, what it is that we truly value, right? So there's a new beginning here, and it's happening with the chart ruler. And so there could definitely be a new beginning in terms of your finances, your material gain and wealth, your value systems. And this is happening in square with Uranus in your fifth house. So for you specifically, this square, this ongoing square, while yes, it has affected your income or your value system or the possessions that you have, the money, materials, possessions, things like that, it also has to do with what brings you joy, what lights you up, what, you know, what's going on in the life of your children could be, you know, topsy-turvy and all over the place. So with this new beginning, this could be a very grounded, very practical new beginning in terms of your finances, your materials, your possessions, and what it is that you value. And maybe there's, you know, something that's been ongoing that now is being highlighted, and it needs to be refined. It needs to be let go of. It needs to move on, right? So that could be something too for Capricorn. For Aquarius and for Aquarius rising, this new moon is happening in your sign, right? So there's a new beginning, a physical new beginning for you, because the first house is a very physical house. It's the house of our body. It's the house of, you know, our life, like who we are as a person. First house is, you know, how people see you, how you see the world. So this could be a new beginning for you, but it's going to be a very grounded, very practical, very long-lasting new beginning, especially with Saturn here activating this Uranus square in the fourth house. This could be a new beginning in terms of your outlook and what you're doing with the home, with the family, with the property. This is another one where some Aquarius risings could be looking at moving, selling, purchasing, things like that, property or a home. So there is that. And so there could definitely be a new beginning for you, a new outlook on life. But it's going to be one that is kind of grounded in very sustainable and very practical value, if that makes sense. So then we have Pisces and Pisces rising. And so this new moon is happening in your 12th house of, you know, your behind the scenes, pulling away from the world. This is a very secret house. You know, it's a house of undoings, a house of endings. Maybe there's something that is coming to an end in terms of, you know, an old addiction, an old way of sabotaging yourself, an old way of taking care of yourself. Maybe you feel like some Pisces risings in particular could be going through what is called a dark night of the soul. And so this is where everything that you thought to be true, everything you thought to be, you know, in reality around you, everything that you held onto in terms of even a spiritual practice, there could be a feeling of disconnection, especially with Saturn here. Saturn is very limiting, delaying, restrictive. Maybe there is a less of a feeling of being connected as a Pisces normally would feel. And I say that I'm a Pisces moon, guys. I get this because this is how it's also hitting my chart. So there could feel like a disconnect between you and your you know, behind the veil kind of senses, right? Like there could be something like that going on. Or this could be a new spiritual practice that's coming in for you that will be much longer lasting, that will be much more in alignment. And especially once Saturn comes through to your ascendant to kind of, you know, make you a little more serious, a little more down to earth, and a little more pragmatic. Once it comes through, right, that's a thing with Saturn coming through the first house. It kind of makes you, it's not like a Saturn return, but Saturn coming through the first house, it kind of makes you grow up a bit. I'll say it that way, because that was also my experience when Saturn came through my first house. Like, I had to grow up and be responsible. And I realized that some of the things that I was doing were not the best for me. And when Saturn was in the 12th house, that's also, I felt very disconnected. I felt very, you know, like dark night of the soul kind of thing, right? Like, that's what happens when Saturn is in your 12th house. So that being said, with Saturn here in your 12th house, that could be what's going on. The shocking thing is going to be in terms of the communication. Either you yourself are going to be communicating something very shocking that's going to kind of cause issue with, you know, what's going on in that 12th house. Or this could be something that shocks you out of complacency in terms of your spiritual practice or how you believe in, you know, the behind the scenes. This could even be a new speaking up about, like, maybe even an alternative health practice or something like that, right? So the 6/12 axis, you know, where this new and full moon is going to be happening is very much about health, wellness, you know, our mental health, our mental wellness, and even the thought before the action, right? Because these are succeedant houses. So there's definitely something going on behind the scenes for you. This could be even working quietly behind the scenes on some type of very practical group association as well, but it's going to be very shocking, and it's also going to be very long lasting. So there is something like that too. So that is what I have for all 12 signs. So I hope you enjoyed this. And I will hopefully see you next week. If not, I will see you for the full moon forecast in a couple weeks. Bye, everyone.